It started like any other house-sitting job. I was in my mid-20s, trying to juggle college classes and side hustles to make ends meet. Among them was house-sitting for a family who vacationed every summer. They had a charming old home nestled in the woods of Rockhaven, Vermont. It paid well, and despite some peculiar incidents, I kept going back. Until one summer, something happened that made me swear off house-sitting forever. The house itself was a mix of old and new. It had been renovated a few years back, but the bones of the building were over a century old. I like to think of it as having character, though that character sometimes came with odd noises in the night or lights flickering when there wasn't a storm. Still, the neighborhood was safe, and the family's 4 cats were sweet, if a bit aloof. The first few days went smoothly. I stayed in their guest room, went to my classes, and enjoyed the rare solitude away from my chaotic family life. Rockhaven was peaceful, with its towering pines and quiet streets. For a while, I even felt a little free, but that feeling didn't last. One evening, my boyfriend at the time, Sam, came over for dinner. He was a cautious guy, the type to double-check if the doors were locked twice before leaving. That night, though, he seemed more on edge than usual. "I don't know, Lena," he said, looking out the window at the trees swaying in the wind. "This place just doesn't feel right tonight." I brushed it off, teasing him about being scared of a creaky old house. But when it was time for him to leave, he hesitated. "Come with me," he urged. "I have a bad feeling." I laughed, waving him off. "Sam, I'm fine. The cats will protect me." He didn't laugh. After he left, I locked all the doors, set the alarm, and curled up in bed. I was halfway through an episode of my favorite show when the TV flickered off. At first, I thought it was a power surge, but the lamp on the nightstand was still on. Then the TV turned back on, this time to a static-filled screen. I froze. The remote was across the room. It flicked off again, then back on. Static, off, on. Heart pounding, I yanked the plug from the wall. "Faulty wiring," I whispered to myself, but my voice shook. The next day, I told Sam about the TV. He gave me a look half, "I told you so," and half genuine worry. That night, he came over again, insisting on staying until I felt comfortable. We made dinner together, laughing about old memories, and for a while, it felt normal. But then, as we sat in the living room watching a movie, a sound stopped us cold. It was faint at first, like a whimper coming from below. Sam muted the TV. The sound grew louder, an unmistakable cry, high-pitched and wavering. "Is that—" he started, but I cut him off. "It's probably one of the cats," I said quickly. "Sometimes they sound like babies when they're distressed." But when I looked around, only 3 of the 4 cats were in the room. I grabbed a flashlight and headed toward the basement door. Each step down the creaky staircase echoed louder than the last. "Rusty?" I called, naming the youngest cat. The crying continued, but it didn't sound like Rusty. It sounded wrong. At the bottom of the stairs, the crying stopped. The silence was deafening. I shone the flashlight around, checking every corner, under the couch, behind the boxes. Nothing. Just as I turned to head back up, something brushed past my leg. I yelped, nearly dropping the flashlight. It was Rusty, looking up at me with wide eyes. "How did you even get down here?" I whispered, scooping him up and bolting upstairs. Sam was waiting at the top of the stairs, pale as a sheet. "What's wrong?" I asked, but he didn't answer. He just pointed. All 4 cats, Rusty included, were sitting in a row by the kitchen door, staring at us. I felt a chill run down my spine. I had just carried Rusty upstairs, hadn't I? The rest of the week passed in a blur of paranoia. I only returned to the house during the day to feed the cats and clean up, always with Sam waiting in the car. On the final day, as I locked up for the last time, I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Years later, I told this story to my sibling, who had house sat for the same family before me. They went quiet, their face growing pale. "You heard the crying too?" they asked. "What do you mean, too?" They hesitated, then admitted they'd also heard strange cries in the house, but never told me because they knew I needed the money. To this day, I don't know what I experienced in that house. Maybe it was just old wiring, drafty windows, or overactive imaginations, but every time I hear a cat cry, no matter where I am, I freeze, waiting for something or someone that I can't quite name. And every so often, I dream of that house. In those dreams, I'm climbing a ladder, rushing to escape, but the cries grow louder, chasing me up each rung. I always wake up before I reach the top, and I hope I never find out what's waiting for me there. This version maintains suspense, builds tension through minor cliffhangers, and ends with a chilling note to anchor the listener's experience. Let me know if you'd like further refinements.